Welcome to the Firebelly Social Show. We're focused on talking to food and beverage brands that are on a mission to make the world better.
Hey, everyone. Duncan here with another episode of the Firebelly Social Show, where I get to chat with founders and leaders of mission-driven food and beverage brands. And today we're stepping into a world where whiskey meets Hollywood with co-founder Troy Bolotnick, CEO of Filmland Spirits, a brand I know very well, and a brand that turns every bottle into a blockbuster through cinematic storytelling and premium craft spirits. I've tried it many times. It's fantastic. But before we roll the credits on this, a big shout out to our sponsor, Firebelly Marketing. At Firebelly, we help food and beverage brands build engaged communities, create meaningful connections through social media marketing and email. So if you're ready to turn your followers into loyal fans and drive real growth, head to firebellymarketing.com to learn more. So welcome, Troy. He's the CEO behind Filmland Spirits. It is a bold whiskey, and Troy brings a wealth of experience in brand building, business strategy, consumer engagement. Under his leadership, Filmland is redefining what it means to create a spirits brand, turning every purchase into an immersive experience. So today we're going to dive into the origin story and how Filmland is standing apart, their storytelling, and so much more. Troy, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you, Duncan. That was quite an introduction.
I'm telling you.
Happy to be here.
And we wrote it. It wasn't AI. So, so let's check it out. You are exceptional. You and Charlie, exceptional in the space in terms of just the boldness of the vision, the actual liquid and everything you're doing. How did all this start? I had to ask this question.
Sure. Yeah. So, Charlie and I have known each other for now 30 something years, a little over 30 years. And he moved away from LA to Atlanta a bunch of years ago. And then we both started getting into bourbon kind of separately and together. And when we realized it, we decided to start meeting in Kentucky and going to distilleries, right? And we immersed ourselves in it like we tend to do with things that we're passionate about. And we just fell in love with all of it, right? The people, the culture, the cocktails, the whiskey, the science, the art, all of it, and just got really into it. And we would meet for 3 or 4 days and go to like 5 or 6 distilleries in a day, right? Which you can't do anymore because now it's much more crowded and you need appointments and all of that. But we went like crazy, and we would do it at least once a year. And on one of those trips, I said, we got to do our own brand one day. We got to do this ourselves. And I think from that statement till when Filmland launched was at least 7 or 8 years. And I just started working on it. Like I had other gigs, I had other, my whole other career going on. And I just started working on it, and I would get together with people and I'd show them ideas. And eventually another friend who's out here in LA and I started working on it together. He helped me get it off the ground, and we were banging our heads against the wall for what we wanted to do. We knew one thing. We knew we wanted eye-catching, bright, colorful labels, right? I'd spent so much time in liquor stores and whiskey shops and walking up and down the aisles and go, craft beer and wine and rum and tequila. They have these fun, engaging, immersive, colorful labels. Why is all the bourbon brown and beige with pictures of dogs or birds on the label, right? And so we knew that as a basic premise. And we just went through idea after idea after idea until one day we were just banging our heads against the wall, and he's a podcast host also. And so he started talking to me and interviewing me as if we were on his podcast. And I started talking, and he stopped me and he said, look, the passion with which you are talking about the movies is the same as the passion you talk about whiskey. Find a way to do them together. And Filmland came right out of that. The idea, we knew we wanted wild and crazy labels. So like B Movies immediately was like, well, that gives us this great playground to do it. And then it all just started flowing from there.
I love one of the things that the brand stands for and that you say on a regular basis, bringing people together through captivating stories and great tasting spirits. That really is powerful.
Right. Look, the best way to watch movies is with a friend or someone you really care about, right? It's just, everybody watches movies alone, and that's great too, but it's fun. And the best way to enjoy spirits and particularly whiskey is with friends or just people having great conversations. So both of those things are about bringing people together. And that's something we wanted to do as, with big intentions as a startup brand, and also what we want our brand to convey and we want people to enjoy it together.
I mean, and it's interesting because as your agency and as a fan of the spirits and the bottle, and it's a VIP gift that we give to our clients and to our friends. I mean, it is just amazing what people to see people's faces when you put a Filmland Spirits bottle in their hand. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's Rise of the Robots or Town at the End of Tomorrow, and everything in between. The people just stop. I mean, when I've given people Angels at Me before, or Pappy or whatever, and it's like, oh, it's cool, but it doesn't stop people the way your bottle does. It just stops them.
Yeah, I mean, nobody's, I don't think, well, anybody sits out and says, let's be disruptors, right? Or maybe they do, I don't know. But I've ended up doing that inadvertently or just in a lot of different aspects of my career. And I think we're doing that to a degree here because of that notion, like we just, we don't want to be the same as everything on the shelf. And not just for the sake of being different, but because we want to pull bourbon forward. And in fact, one of our concerns, we were thinking maybe we wouldn't even launch in Kentucky and we'd get to Kentucky later because we thought there's going to be a lot of bourbon purists who are going to look down their nose at us. And a distributor from Kentucky called us long before we launched because he'd heard about us and said, we want you. And so we're like, great, we'll launch in Kentucky. Maybe we'll get on a few shelves, establish our credibility or whatever. Kentucky loves us. And I have met so many bourbon aficionados. And now over time, I've met a lot of bourbon luminaries, people who I looked up to as for inspiration before I got into the business. And I've just been so flattered and gratified because they have reached out to me and said, I just want to meet you. I love what you're doing. What you're doing is great for bourbon. What you're doing is necessary for the future of bourbon.
Well, and I think I love that you said that you're how do you say, you're direct, you're cut to the chase,
Mhm.
you're someone who communicates effectively. And so I think that I'm just going to follow your style and your lead. I think the expectation that, when I've given the bottle out or in conversations you and I have had, the expectation is, well, this is an amazing bottle. The branding is killer. Maybe the liquid's not very good, right?
Mhm.
And the surprise in this is that the liquid is great and it's unique. I mean, can you speak to that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, sure. And we knew that before we ever launched. We said, look, we are going to be walking the line between kitsch and cool. And our goal is to just stay on the cool side of the line, right? And we know that there's a segment of the audience that and consumers that like me are Marvel nerds and Star Wars geeks, and then if they also like whiskey, we're done. They see our bottle and go, I have to have that, which means they're going to give us a chance to taste it, and then once they taste it, we know we got them because our liquid is so good, and that's not just us saying it, right? Every one of our core products and all of our limited releases that we've submitted for competitions have won gold or double gold medals from the most prestigious, oldest, largest, most difficult competition to get those medals from because they don't see our labels, they don't see our packages, they just get a glass with brown liquid in it and they know it's bourbon or rye. And we keep winning. And the scores we get for taste from Whiskey Advocate, American Whiskey Magazine, bourbon legends like Peggy Noe Stevens, who, gets paid countless amounts of dollars to design taste profiles for some of the largest distilleries in the world, gave us one of her highest scores ever in American Whiskey Magazine when she reviewed us, right? So we have credibility now on the taste. So for us, it's just, especially from a marketing standpoint, it's about getting that consideration, right? There's that percentage of the audience out there that is never going to know how great we are if they judge a book by its cover, right? In the negative sense, because a lot of people judge us, but we want to be judged by our cover because, by the way, all of our artwork on our covers has won gold medals for design awards and design and packaging, right? So we just got to get that segment of the audience to sort of get past that initial reaction and go, well, maybe this is good. Maybe they spent just as much, if not more, energy, effort, time, and money on the liquid as they did on the packaging, which is what we do. We are bourbon nerds, whiskey geeks first. If I wasn't proud of our liquid, and I can sit, and I have now sat with very famous bourbon master distillers, I hand them our liquid, and I'm proud of it, right? I wouldn't be in this if I wasn't.
I mean, what kind of bullshit is it that people are not okay with a great brand, a great tasting liquid and great marketing. Like, why is that okay in every other industry? It's like, look at Kia, right? Kia gives its customers a good value experience. The marketing is good, right?
Right.
Cracker Barrel, let's not touch that one, right? Like, here's the thing. It's like suddenly with bourbon, you got to fit into all this like old style branding, this old communication. And it's like, if you're cool, like it's suspicious. Like, why is that? Is it just like a retro oriented market in terms of attitudes?
I think so. And it's interesting. I've gotten emails um, I got an email from a guy who said he was in the industry for 30 years as a brewer and a distiller, right? I hadn't heard of his brand or whatever, but he wrote me this email and he's like, look, I don't usually write these, but I feel I need to. And he was sort of resentful of upstarts like us interfering with what bourbon really is, right? And claiming we lacked authenticity. Right. And I usually don't respond to that kind of thing because who's got the time? And it's okay. We're not going to win over everybody. But there was something about it that made me say he just doesn't understand who we are. Right. So I wrote him a very long response, not defensive, not anything like that, but just basically saying, look, here is why we are authentic. I didn't go out and license existing B movies and just slap them on and become, just trying to make a buck off somebody else's intellectual property. We are writers. We write a script for every one of our products. These are all original characters that take days and weeks and months to develop. We have backstories for them and we have and then we spend a fortune on our artwork, right? And use professional artists and all of that screams authentic. And he was a brewer in the beer business. And I said, can you find a craft beer today that can sell without some zaniness on the label? Does that make them inauthentic? Right? It's just, and I said to him, I go, look, I know we're going to leave some people behind and it's okay, but this is where it's going. Because if X number of years ago, wine didn't look like this, craft beer didn't look like this, but the majority of wine is sold based on the label. I hate to say it because I'm a wine fan as well, but that is how it works. Right? And we just want people to pay attention and go, wow, that is cool. Let me try it. Oh my gosh, this is amazing liquid.
I mean, I think that I love that you responded because I mean that's not common for leaders to do. But speaking of that, let's run with that. I mean, you mentioned the fact that there's a label. Actually, there's a script first, and there's a concept, there's a script, and then everything else follows that, right? And
Yeah.
what's that process like?
Um, Well, so the description of it is right. We are an LA based company because we have a background in Hollywood as writers, and I did a lot of other things in the entertainment industry, and I live in LA, right? But we do all our work in Kentucky, right? We age, we blend, we bottle. All of that happens in the home of bourbon in Kentucky, right? And I'm there a tremendous amount of the year. Um, but Charlie and I, a million years ago, were screenwriters. And so we combine those two passions together and we write an original script for every product. And then we create a poster for that script that becomes the label. And we very purposely design it in that mid 20th century pulp art kind of style, bright, eye-catching colors. And one side of the label is all about the movie. So it has a synopsis, the characters, their headshots and bios. You can scan a QR code, watch a trailer, interact with storyboards, read script pages, download the poster. The other side of the label is our serious side, right? It's all about the award-winning liquid, who we are, tasting notes, and then we try and put as much transparency as we can on the label, right? So it's not just where it's distilled and where it's bottled, right? Which legally you have to include. It's the mash bill all the way down to the char of the barrel in which it was aged.
I mean, that is so intense, and I love that you're doing that. Now let me say which I know they're all your babies, but name one that you just can't ever get enough of.
People always ask me that, and I always say the same line, which is, that's like picking a favorite child. I had one, I just can't say which one it is, right? Now, my favorite child is the one who's asking me for less money at the moment. Um, my favorite tends to vary, right? Because we keep coming out with limited special editions, and I keep falling in love with them. So if you asked me this a year ago, I would have said Quadriforce by far. It's like when I drink Quadriforce, this is kind of crazy. I taste Vienna finger cookies,
Mm.
right? I don't know if you remember Vienna fingers, but that creamy sort of, little bit of the white cream, but also that creamy cookie biscuit kind of flavor. And I was just obsessed with it. It makes an amazing old fashioned, right? And then we came out with White Port Wolf, which is our newest release. It's Moonlight
Yes.
Mayhem 2, the White Port Wolf. And we took our double gold medal winning Moonlight Mayhem bourbon, aged it for 7 years, and then stuck it into White Port wine casks,
Oh man.
and it is so unique and so flavorful and so different. And it's not, a lot of port finishes end up feeling like dessert wines or dessert bourbons, I should say. This is not what I would call dessert bourbon. Sure, have it for dessert, but this is, you can sip this neat and you're having a very unique, extremely flavorful experience with all these earthy tones and nutty and a lot of that like green grape, especially the skin of the green grape, those kind of flavors. And it just brings out everything in this bourbon. It is really amazing. So obviously you can tell by the way I'm talking about it is my current special favorite, but I do love them all because we have our core products, Moonlight Mayhem, 94 proof bourbon, Moonlight Mayhem extended cut, our cast strength bourbon, Rise of the Robots 94 proof rye, and Rise of the Robots extended cut, our cast strength rye. And we tend to say, look, we make our 94 proof products, I love, right? Our core products. And we know that our labels are going to attract and have been attracting new bourbon drinkers, right? And so we wanted them to be accessible. So they're really our rise. A lot of people come up to me when I'm doing tastings and bottle signings, particularly women for some reason. I don't know why, but they come up and they say, "Oh, I don't like rye," and then they taste our rye and go, "Oh, I like that," right? Because we don't lean into the sort of dill and pepper kind of flavors. It's there, the spice is there, but we tend to lean into the citrus and the mint. We love minty rye, and it just makes it a little bit more accessible. And yet, seasoned rye and bourbon drinkers like, oh, they love this, especially our cast strength. They go crazy for it, right? And so when we were first designing the blends and the flavor profiles for those products, we made those 94 proof products something that we would love, but we wanted to make sure, newer bourbon drinkers, sophisticated bourbon drinkers, they would all love it. We tend to drink cask strength, right? As most people who've been drinking whiskey a long time tend to do. So we really made those products for us and for people who love to drink, cask strength and get as much flavor as they can out of it and can handle a little more alcohol. And yet we have a tremendous reputation for our cask strength products, drinking as though they are lower proof in terms of the alcohol burn, but just tons of flavor coming through. I mean, I had a lot of people taste both our 94 proof and our cast strength in the same session and they get confused as to which is which because of how smooth they are.
I mean, I love that you also mentioned, it does well in an old fashioned. It makes a great old fashioned. I love that because there a part of me, I'm sure this is a part of you too, leans into the fact that, you know what, there's so much that's gone into this. I gotta honor the outcome that the producers and the designers of this whiskey want me to have. I'm gonna have it either neat or I'm gonna have it on a one rock of ice, right? But there's no rule about that. And so why not have, in fact, you have an amazing recipe for an old fashioned with mayhem, moonlight mayhem on your website.
Yeah.
And I think it speaks to reality. People, even with the best tequila, you're gonna probably make a margarita with it one time,
Right.
right? So why the why the austerity about how you drink it? I think
Yeah, no, I understand that. Look, I have bottles that I've paid a tremendous amount of money for, and the thought of mixing in something else with the whiskey seems sacrilegious to me,
yes.
right? But I paid a lot more than our most expensive product for those bottles there, so but I understand that for some people, our most expensive bottle is their most expensive bottle, and they don't want to do that. And well, look, on the side of the label, we have the tasting notes and we have suggestions, enjoyed neat, enjoyed over a large rock, that kind of thing. They are suggestions. We support any way you want to enjoy our products. And in fact, if you've ever been at a tasting with me where I'm leading a tasting of our products, I say the same thing. I go, the tasting notes are right there in the bottle. Please ignore them, right? That's what we taste, right? I don't care. I care what you taste. I want to hear all your feedback, good, bad, indifferent. I want to hear everything that you taste because that's fun and that's fascinating and it is highly subjective.
Okay, so Troy, I gotta ask this question. um, if there are heritage brands, that they haven't changed in like what 150 years, right? Where does Filmland stand? Disruptor, innovative, and yet a very high quality, popular product, liquid, I should say, high
Right.
quality is paramount. I think is what something you say.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Look, I think we can be on the shelf together. We can be on the shelf next to each other. There's no reason that we can't, right? And we can appeal to the same bourbon lovers and drinkers, and then we can appeal to different people, right? People who feel, they see that heritage bottle on their shelf and they just feel that sense of pride with it. And there are people who see our bottle on the shelf, which, by the way, if you take away the label, our bottle is a very sophisticated Art Deco sort of heritage kind of
Yes,
bottle,
yes.
right? And that was a purposeful choice to kind of balance out the craziness of our labels. Um, and so I think, and I have seen it's fun when I walk into a liquor store and we're sitting there right next to some of the top brands in terms of either volume or credibility. And we're right there on the shelf, literally next to them. I can't tell you how many times in Kansas and Kentucky I've walked in and we're sitting next to Angel's Envy, right? And Angel's Envy redefined bourbon, right? The bottle is still a work of art. And they were really the first finished bourbon and they popularized it. And we're right there on the shelf next to them. That's awesome.
I mean, when did they come out? Like 2014, is it, or 2013,
I think a
something?
little before, maybe 2012.
Yeah. I mean, it is. I remember like in the mid-teens, someone gave you a bottle of Angel's Envy, or they were serving Angel's Envy. It was somehow like an event, right? It was something. Uh, but I'll say that I've had two very sad experiences with Filmland Spirits. The first one was the top of the bottle, someone banged something against it
Hmm.
at our house, and the whole top of the bottle broke off. And my wife was about to pick it up and toss. I said, "No, no, you can't do that." She said, "What are you doing?" We took the bottle, emptied it into like a little water jug, and then strained it back into the bottle. And the second time, not so fun, at a Chinese restaurant, I brought a bottle as a present, and the expletive, knocked it over, and it spilled on the floor. And I was like, hey, I was giving it to him as a gift, but I was so brokenhearted.
Oh, yes. Well, look, that's the old expression, right? Don't cry over spilled bourbon. Um, but I hear you. Know that pains me to hear. The broken bottle is, terrible. Every bottle has a weak spot on it, and you try and eliminate that. But bottles break if you
Some
clank them
bottles,
against
yeah.
hard surfaces, right? And we're on our like maybe fifth generation of bottles, and we've only been on the market for 3 years because we're constantly, if I hear about one broken bottle like that.
Oh, these were user error, both
Yeah,
of
but
them.
I still go back to our engineers and go, "Why did this happen?" And they're like, "It's not made of metal." I'm like, "Well, find out, fix it." So yeah, that it
How do
does
you,
happen, and that is unfortunate, and I'm glad you strained it and kept it because I would have done the same thing.
the funny thing was I was drinking it with my colleague Bryce, who you know, and he was like, "Man," he goes, "Nothing gonna stop us." But how do you like this is an interesting question, and I remember having this conversation with marketing Charlie, marketing Daniel, I should say. And how do you balance creativity and this old school compliance in the bourbon world?
It can be a challenge sometimes because we are very familiar with the rules. The challenge is, and I'm sure you've heard this before, the rules are interpreted by the person who happens to be looking at your label the TTB, which is the government body that approves your labels. And so sometimes we will have a label approved and then we put another label through that has the same exact wording and elements on it and it gets kicked back. And you can't go, but you approved the last one because then they'll go, well, not anymore, right? And we've got thousands of labels printed, and so it's a bit of a dance, and you got to make your case, and sometimes we have to sacrifice a little bit of creativity to be in compliance, right? But yes, we have B movies tend to have exaggerated characters and they appear a certain physical way or whatever, but we're way tamer than most brands that feature things like that. And so I've never had any, the artwork has never been a question, right? We've never had any artwork issues. It's all been wording issues, right? And wording in the stuff that's legally restricted in some ways, and type size has to be certain size and things like that. But we don't want to, we don't put guns on our labels. I just don't think that's the right thing to do, right? Even if it's part of the movie or story, I just don't think it goes along with whiskey, in my opinion, at least on the label, right?
Okay, so this is a very, very gravity-filled question, but when will there be a Town at the End of Tomorrow t-shirt?
T-shirt. Could be sooner than we would have ever thought, because we have made a deal, licensing agreement with a merchandise company that is going to be producing a lot more merchandise than we currently have now, and a lot more variety and things like that. So that's in the works. And while they don't have free reign, it's their job to come to us with designs and use our artwork and show us. So, and it's easier from, they're a little more create on demand kind of organization. And so that is very likely to happen in the next few months.
Okay, so another question. Comparatively speaking, to bourbons that are, hundreds of years old, as a young emerging brand taking over the world, what are some of the challenges and lessons you've learned?
Do you have 10 hours? The challenges are numerous, and any business, any startup, look, challenges are numerous in giant brands as well. They're just different kinds of challenges, but there's never enough money, right? We always have more ideas and more things we want to do and more ways we want to market and message and reach out to our current customers and potential customers. But it all takes a lot of funds, and that's always a balancing act. And I'm always raising money, right? That's part of what you do as a small business owner. You got to invest to get to that return point. It takes years, right? So that's part of the challenge. Early on we had challenges because we were founding and getting going during COVID. I started working on this like in earnest. I told you I worked on it for like 7 years on the side, but in earnest full time in September of 2020. And so at that point, like, you couldn't get bottles. We were going to use a stock bottle, right? We weren't going to create our own bottle. And then there was no such thing as a stock bottle at that point because nobody had anything in stock. You couldn't get glass, right? And the ports were all backed up, and it was so difficult. We said, all right, well, we're going to have to wait a year either way. So let's make a custom bottle. Because before, we were like, no, we can launch sooner, but it was the best decision we ever made, right? That's one of the great things about life and business is those happy accidents. We ended up with this amazing bottle that, we wouldn't have had before. So, there were things like it forced us to launch a year later than I wanted to, right? Which means revenue's delayed a year, which means everybody has to be taken care of for another, all of those things. But like I said, there were a lot of happy benefits and accidents that came out of that as well. Those have been like some of the major challenges that we've dealt with.
What about 10 years? 12, no, 12 years into this, I guess. What advice would you give to someone who's wanting to start a spirits brand?
Um, Raise a lot of money or have a lot of money to do it. Have a tremendous amount of patience. And the same advice that everybody gave me, and I think it's even more necessary now, was you have to be special. There has to be something about you that is different and special because there are 4,000 brands, right? And the shelf is full, and you have to get the distributor's attention, and you have to get the retailer's attention, and most importantly, you have to get your customers' attention, right? And like, ironically, from that email I told you about earlier, be authentic. Be authentic to who you are and put that into your product because people can feel it and they know when you're not, right? And they know when you are.
I mean, it's interesting. I run a mastermind for agency owners, and we had one of our meetings yesterday, and one of our members was saying how he's so proud of the fact, that AI writes all his LinkedIn content, and
Mhm.
he has a scheduler, and he has a VA, and it gets scheduled, and it's so efficient. And they're also reaching out to people on LinkedIn based on his ideal customer profile, and they're sending out invites, and everyone's listening, and nobody wanted to say anything. And so finally, I said, like, "Hey, listen, I want to push back on you." I said, "When the people meet you, there's gonna be a gap, man."
Hmm.
You have this interpretation, no matter how good AI is, you have this interpretation of who you are. There's no instinct, there's no spontaneity, there's no moodiness, there's no empathy. It's just, it's generated, right? And when they meet you, and so I think that you're right. It's like being who you are is the best way to be, right?
Yeah.
There's no, I mean, don't they say that about writers too? It's like write about what you know.
Yeah. Right. And I was a writer before I was anything else. I started writing when I was in third grade, and people would say, "What do you want to do when you grow up?" And I would say, "I want to be an author." Right. And that's what I was a creative writing major in college, or as my dad called it, a bum. And, and that's what I did for a career for a while. And it goes into everything that I do. So yes. And that is the number one thing they tried to teach you in creative writing in college was, write what you know.
So I know there's a lot of people that want to ask you this question too. What exciting new releases or storylines can fans expect around the corner?
Um, well, we try not to talk about what's coming specifically, as all brands do, because we want you focused on what's there now, right? And Moonlight Mayhem 2 really is brand new, even though we released it in June. It's just getting onto the shelves in a lot of our markets, right? It's been available on our website, and it's been like a major seller for us since we released it. But it is just like I don't think it's on shelves in Colorado yet. It just is getting onto shelves in New York and in Georgia. Um, so that is what's new, and that is what's the latest, and I'm super super proud of the liquid. I didn't even talk about the artwork on it, as by far I think my favorite of our artwork, and we did it in a kind of a different way than we've ever done, which is, and I know this isn't the question you asked me, but I'm avoiding the answer. The artist who did this, we used a different artist. So our process, by the way, is we'll kind of come up with a creative concept. I'll usually daydream something up, and then I will sit in Photoshop forever and mock up what I want it to look like, and I'll create like 30 versions of it. And then when I'm ready, I'll bring 10 of those or whatever to the team, and then we all rip them apart, and we keep narrowing it down further and further and further until we get to a digital mock-up that looks like it's almost scotch taped together of what we want it to be. And then we will bring an artist in to recreate it from scratch. And it always ends up being a little different than we envision. And so that's what we did with Moonlight Mayhem 2, except this time the artist, our sales and marketing manager, Zach, who's based up in Portland, knew of a local artist who back in the 80s and 90s was creating movie posters, a man named Anton Kimball, who's kind of well known in certain art circles, lived very near him. And so we engaged with Anton, and he did this for us. And every poster that we've done before this was done by an artist digitally painted, right? So they're sitting there with a stylus and Photoshop and digitally painted. Anton painted it by hand on canvas.
Oh, wow.
And so he painted the white port wolf, and he painted the background and the car and the moon and the other characters all as separate elements, and then had them scanned in. And then we took them from there and assembled them into the label. But I have the canvases. I have the original boards. It's so cool. And so I'm really proud of that. And it came out amazing. It's just stunningly beautiful.
So we did our little production team and I worked to do something a little meta for you. If nothing to do with Facebook, if there was going to be a movie with starring Troy Bolotnick, these are who we would cast, and we're submitting to you for your approval since you are the subject.
Boy.
Jake Gyllenhaal, Oscar Isaac, Henry Cavill, Ryan Gosling, or okay, Austin Butler. There's different reasoning behind all of these.
Well, that is all excessively flattering, right? That's a good group of actors and a handsome group of guys. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
We rejected Jesse Eisenberg, and someone on our team said, "Well, he's a bit neurotic, but he's still sharp like Troy."
Well, Troy's a bit neurotic too, but that's very funny. That's
now,
very funny.
Troy, what do you mean? You're obviously a highly accomplished guy. you're doing so many things. You're always on the go. What do you do to take care of Troy?
Well, I try to work out the less these days than I used to because things are so busy. I love traveling, by the way. I'm lucky that my kids are at an age where I don't need to be around for them on a day-to-day basis. They're both in college. And so, I'm sort of free and my girlfriend's very patient with me. And so, finds it's her duty to pick me up at the airport and drop me off and all of that. And she loves doing that. But I do travel probably half the time these days because I'm going into the markets where we are and meeting people and leading tastings and talking to retailers and things like that. But I love it. It's a little tiring sometimes when you're going from city to city to city, but I do love it. And I still love watching movies and spending time with my girlfriend and my kids. And that's enough for me because
That is
this is my favorite job I've ever had.
that's a
I'm not, I work and I work hard and I know the expression like find something you love and you'll never work in it. I love this and I'm working, right? But it is fun. Even when things are very stressful, people will say, do you regret this? I'm like, no, this is the best job I've ever had.
That's amazing. That's inspiring. And now, what about I'm not going to put you on the spot and say, what's your favorite movie? Because I hate that question personally, but what's a movie you can always go back to? Like you
Um,
don't want to commit to a new show. You want a bit of nostalgia and something that you just can sink into. What's something you go to?
there are so many because these days I tend to prefer to watch movies I've watched before. But I have I don't know if I have eclectic taste, but I have varied taste, right? So I just, I finished watching Andor, the TV show, the second season,
In
and
second
then of
season. I heard
course
I
you
heard
have
that
to,
that might be the darkest Star Wars ever produced.
yeah, it was intense, but of course you have to then watch Rogue One because it leads right into it. And then I watched Rogue One. I'm like, well, now I have to watch Star Wars. So I sat and rewatched the entire, 10 movies over the course of a week or so, just kind of having them on while I'm doing other stuff at night or whatever. And I can rewatch those movies, even though not all of them are works of art, right? And I'll be honest with you, I skipped the first three because I don't need to see those ever again. When I say the first three, I mean one, two, and three, not four, five, and six, just to
Yes,
be clear.
yes, yes.
So I can watch those anytime. I love most of the Marvel movies, you know. And then at the same time, I can watch Casablanca endlessly, right? Because that's as close to a perfect movie as ever existed. And I'm trying to think what else because I will rewatch movies over and
I
over
feel
again.
like I feel like I would predict that you have seen Blade Runner at least two or three times.
You know what? It's just one of those movies that I never saw when it was in the theater when I was a kid, and so I saw it years later, and it was very cool. And I could see how if I'd seen it back then, it would have been groundbreaking, right? But and I liked it. I didn't love the sequel as much. I
Yeah.
guess there's another one coming now. But yeah, no, that I love romantic comedies. And so The American President, I could watch that movie over and over and over again. You know what I'm talking about? Annette Bening and Michael Douglas, written by Aaron Sorkin.
Yes.
Um, right. And as a teenager, when Harry Met Sally, it was like
Oh my
that was
gosh.
the greatest movie ever made,
Yeah,
right?
that deli scene is still great.
And then this is one people don't really remember a lot, but a movie called The Freshman with Matthew Broderick and Marlon Brando towards the end of his life,
Yes.
where he was sort of playing a caricature of him playing The Godfather. And it was just so brilliant and sarcastic. And, my high school friends and I still quote that movie.
I mean, I gotta go back and revisit that. I mean, to think that Matthew Broderick is now the age of Marlon Brando when Marlon Brando made that film is
Yeah.
like something interesting there. Well, and what else do you what else do you want to talk about? I want to give you a moment to see if there any topics on your mind that you want.
No, I mean, we always want people to visit us on social media. Of course, we're at Filmland Spirits on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and join us. Our thanks to some of our marketing partners, our following has really taken off and grown at a very rapid pace, and we have a really engaged audience, and it's a lot of fun. And we're always putting cocktail recipes up there and all kinds of fun content. We're evolving that every day. And then we're expanding really rapidly. So at the beginning of this year, we were in 10 states, and in the fall, we're going to be going. I'm hesitating because I'm trying to remember if it's 18th or 19th state, right? Because then we're in different states and to different degrees, right? We have some limited presence in certain states, but we're opening up in Texas this fall, which is obviously a massive undertaking for us. But we're very excited about it. And I'll be there next week, and I'll probably be there a lot over the next 6 months to a year.
Well, thank you so much for coming on today. It's really great to get behind the brand, to understand, your vision and your process and how much time and energy you've devoted to it and the backstory. And it really is interesting how it really, it's the phrase, I think, is it sips to lips,
Liquid to lips.
liquid to lips.
Yeah.
I mean, even if you could get past, which I don't know if you get the bottle and the label and even how beautifully the cork comes out of the bottle. I know all details that you care about, but the liquid is so great that I mean, one can feel it and taste it, and I'm for one a big fan. And it's you've done a great job of merging, your favorite kind of storytelling with world-class whiskey to build a brand experience that people can collect. And I'm excited about the t-shirts. And hey, everyone, if you want to grab yourself a bottle, head to filmlandspirits.com. It's a one-of-a-kind collection. If you're ready to take your social media game to the next level, hit up firebellymarketing.com. We're here to help you build engagement and build community. And thanks for tuning into the show. This is a great experience for me to talk to amazing people who are making the world better and give them a platform. So don't forget to subscribe, rate, review so you don't miss an episode. Until next time, thank you again, Troy, for coming on today. Until next time, keep innovating and building something unforgettable.
Thanks for listening to the Firebelly Social Show. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.